Welcome to another day of Bitcoin is still stuck in the same range. However, two things happened yesterday that I talked about as a potential to happen on my update. Today, I'm going to follow through on those two things, and we're also going to have a bit of a talk about this Bitcoin ETF. Do I think it's going to be a sell the news event? So that's what we're going to get into today. If you are new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Be sure to smash that like button nice and early. When you guys do that, it really does support this channel, and it helps to let other people out there know that this creator exists, which I really appreciate. So smash that like button if you haven't already, hit subscribe, and let's get into this video. Now, the first thing I want to get into is the Bitcoin heat map orders. On yesterday's update, I told you that there were shorts waiting at 42,900, which was also around about the 50 EMA area, and that if we were going to see any upside, we needed to break through and retest that area. So these are the heat maps now. We can see there's really not much going on above or below price currently. So that's okay, because that just means we trade pure price action. So let me give you a follow-up to what actually happened after my video update yesterday. So this was the area here at 42,900 that I said we needed to break and retest if we were going to see further upside. Once we did break that level, new orders came in at 43,500. So you can see here that that's where the next level ran to, and that happened at Asia session earlier this morning, or the dead gap zone actually. And now we're in this situation where, is it a lower high or is it a higher low? The only way that you can really make the distinction is in the wicks and the speed of the candles. So that's what I'm going to talk about in detail to help you understand that price action isn't just about price hitting a level. What you really have to learn as a trader is what happens when it gets there. What is the story that the candlesticks tell you? I always say that there are two things you need in order to take a trade. One is the setup. What I gave you yesterday was the setup, a few ideas of what I wanted to see price do before I would actually take action. Following the setup is the trigger, and the trigger comes from the candlesticks. Once they reach your area of interest, they tell you the story of what's going to happen next. So what I want to point out here is that once we did break through, now I did mention that I wanted to break through with volume. We go down to the 4-hour time frame, and this was the one where I wanted to see the 50 EMA break with volume if we were going to have more upside. Now, we broke the 50 EMA, which is the blue EMA on my chart here, but we did not break it with volume. To break it with volume, these PVSRA candles should be either green or blue, worst case scenario. So again, if you're new here, you may not ever have heard of candles like this. You can add these candles to your chart. They will look a little bit different to mine because this is a custom indicator, but you can get something close by just going to your indicators and adding PVSRA. And it's this one here, PVSRA volume. That will change your candlestick colors. And maybe I'll do a whole video on exactly what the candle colors mean, but just for a very, very brief explanation, it's a big percentage increase in volume in comparison to the prior 10 candles. The reason we want to know that, as opposed to just knowing normal volume that most people will use on their chart, is because if the percentage is so large, that means it's a large amount of money coming in to do that. And we would assume there's only one type of player in the market who can do that, which would be the market maker. So there's no evidence it's the market maker. It's an assumption that it's the market maker. So when we have a look at this break here of the 50 EMA, they're not there on the 4-hour time frame, but we would likely see it on lower time frames. The plus side with this 4-hour time frame, however, we're still above the 200 EMA, which is a very good sign that the 200 is currently acting as support every time it touches there or goes close to there. And at this point in time, it does look like this retest here, hopefully, I mean, at the time of filming this, there's still an hour to go of this 4-hour candle. But if this 4-hour candle closes back above the 50 EMA, that's going to be fairly positive in my opinion. That would probably count as the break and the retest. Let's go down to the 1 hour to have a look now what the candles are telling us down there, because once you see something on a higher time frame, the candles on the lower time frame are going to give you a little bit more confidence. So as we come in here and have a look at the 1 hour time frame, this is where we did break with volume in the 1 hour time frame. So this is the green candle that I was talking about. Would have preferred to see that on the 4 hour, but not mad that I can see it on the 1 hour. So that 50 EMA broke with volume here, and then it made a run up to create the initial high of today at this point in time. Now we're getting the retest back to the 42,900. So this was the retest right here. At the time of filming this, we are in the UK session. So you need to understand that there are 3 sessions every day. Well, 4. One is the dead gap zone. That's not an open market maker session. So it's a highly volatile, low volume session. We usually avoid it. So let's discount that one. But there are 3 open market sessions, which is the Asia session, UK, and US session. And if you add this indicator down here, go to indicators and type in market session times. And this one is here is by us, by 𝗟𝗶𝗿𝗃. So you can add that. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, the times will be right for your time zone because it's set to New York time. But that will add these down. You can play around with some settings because you can move these dots to the top or the bottom, and you can also make it colored blocks on the back of your chart instead of dots. But I like to have them dots down the bottom. So that will tell you automatically what the sessions are. And so once you have those sessions, then you need to understand the session behaviors. So Asia session, their job is to consolidate and create the initial high and the low of the day. And that range generally is no more than a 2% range. So if we hold a 2% range during Asia, then that is a good typical Asia session, and it could be setting you up pending news events that could be coming up. It could be setting you up for a typical trading day, which is good. So if you want to know that, you just go from the lowest point that price went during Asia, which was this candle right here, to the highest point we went during Asia, which was this week here, and we have a 2.19%. So I would say that's close enough to a typical range for Asia today. So Asia's done its job. Once that's done, UK's job is to run a trend, and that trend should break either the initial low or high of the day. Let's go and have a look at the 15-minute time frame because it's going to give us a better idea of which way UK is running the trend. So having a look at this, we can see here that the low was created in Asia, and then as the UK opened, it retested the low. That's actually a pretty good sign. And since then, we seem to be running up to the upside to the 50 EMA on the 15-minute time frame. However, the problem that I have with this is no volume has come in. That can be normal for UK, but it kind of looks really kind of weak right now, and it's not really going anywhere. However, as long as it holds above this level here, this is the initial low of the day at 43,010. If it holds above there, then I would say we're going to be okay. And it's probably just running the slow trend for UK. We should actually check if there are any news events coming up today that may affect price action. So having a look at Forex Factory, today is Thursday the 28th. We only have unemployment claims coming out and pending home sales. So unless the unemployment claims is dramatic, it shouldn't have too much effect on the price. I think this is just a matter of the holiday period and having really low volume. I can't really put it down to much more than that. And the 15-minute time frame is probably not one that I actually want to trade on, to be honest with you. But if we zoom out to the start of the week, what we can see so far is that we've had the weekend trap here. It looks like we had a double-sided false move week beginning, and this was the one-day trend that ended that potentially, and now we hopefully should be in the 3-day trend to the upside. But that's going to be dependent on price now staying above this initial low of the day, which is at 43,000 kind of area. So as long as we can stay above 43,000 for the rest of the UK session, then the only thing we'll have to do is come back to see if US is going to reverse the trend. So I said to you that the session behavior is Asia consolidates between a 2% range. That's its normal behavior. UK's normal behavior is to run a trend, a slow trend, which is what it's doing. It's why it's not a lot of volume. And US's job is to either reverse what the UK did or continue it, depending on what the target is for the day. So we always have to check for potential reversals around this period here that you can see highlighted on the market session times. That turquoise area is where we look for potential reversals. They can be really, really good trades if you can catch them in that time. So I'm going to leave the 15-minute alone because it's a little bit wishy-washy for me. I don't really like it. My concentration right now is what's happening on this 4-hour time frame. And as long as we continue to create higher lows, I'm okay to believe this is an ascending triangle that's going to break to the upside. Also, as long as we are above this dotted line here, which sits at around 42,650, that's the halfway mark of this whole range. And so any retest that holds above that dotted line is, again, a good retest, as long as the candlesticks tell me that it's okay to stay in a long position. Now, how do the candlesticks do that? Well, I'll tell you, but first thing you have to do is like this video if you have not already done so. And second thing is hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. So I'm going to show you how the candlesticks tell the story on a smaller time frame because it's easier to see. So let's use this as an example. This move up here is showing you the strength in the momentum to the upside. Now, this was yesterday, okay? So as this was trending up, these green candles here that are larger than basically any other candle that you can see yesterday, the fact that they're green and that they're larger is showing you that there was more volume, there was more aggressive buying to push price up. Now, when I say aggressive buying, that's retail buying, okay? So the way that those orders can get filled is with someone selling on the other side, which is the market maker. So the market maker was aggressively selling to you, right? And that would be because their positions were already built earlier. So they're taking profit essentially and potentially also building positions in another direction. But when we get to the top here, see how this candle here was blue? So when it's a move to the upside, the blue candle shows still an increase in volume, but it's less of an increase than the green ones. So what that tells you, when you see green followed by blue, the momentum to the upside is running out. And you can see that here because the blue in this case formed the peak, right? In addition to forming the peak, it also has a very large wick at the top, saying that with that strength that it tried to push through and keep going higher, there just wasn't enough. There must have been too many aggressive sellers here that then pushed it right back down. So that's how it tells you the story. So if you were waiting for the break and retest yesterday, this was the break, and this could be where people panic and go, oh, it might not come back for a retest. But you see, with enough patience, in this case, it did come back for a retest. Now, when it comes back for the retest, that is again when we have to really, really have a look at these candles and see what story is the retest telling us. So when I have a look at this retest area, first of all, I can see here that this is a blue vector candle that has a very, very large wick to the bottom. So it's the exact opposite story of this blue vector candle here, meaning that sellers tried to push price down to break the initial low of the day. So they tried to push it back down, but there were two aggressive buyers that pushed it back up. The buyers in this case got to close this as a hammer, which is a bullish sign in a retest area, is a really great sign. And since then, we have not returned to the very bottom of this wick. So this area here would be trapped traders who may have shorted too late, because in order for a wick to exist, there has to be a buyer and seller on each side. And since then, we are slowly moving up. So I do like the 1 hour a lot better than the 15-minute currently. I like that we've, had this move to the upside. We've come down. I like the formation of the candles around the initial low of the day as we've headed into a new session. And I like that we're now above the 50 EMA. This is kind of looking good for me. So when the question is this the lower high to go down, or is this the higher low to go up? By assessing the candles at the final stage, I personally believe that this is the higher low. So it's kind of looking good to me, and not that I would open a new long position here. I'm already long, so I kind of don't really need to, but this is looking decent to me. And the other reason it's looking decent is because on this uptrend here, when you do get those green or blue vector candles, you mark them out, they become an area of interest for where price may return to on a retest. So both of these candles here are relevant for that, and we can see the lower one that I've just marked, price came close, very, very close, but it didn't come back to it. That's a positive sign, but it came back to a portion of this one here, and we had a few wicks in the zone and have shifted out. So to me, that's still all fairly positive. We're just lacking volume. So I am going to rely on the US to bring the volume to keep this moving to the upside. I don't have at this point in time a real reason to short. You could say that this shows weakness and it's a lower high. Yeah, possibly, but I'm uncertain. And if I'm uncertain, I just don't take a trade. So at this point in time, I haven't opened a short position. And that also partially comes down to, I don't really see anything fantastic in the candles to tell me to short, but I also feel like it just doesn't really make all that much sense to short when we're only a couple of weeks away from this ETF decision, So this article here that probably just blinded you as I switched to it, shows here that MicroStrategy just bought Bitcoin worth 615.7 million ahead of the SEC spot ETF decision. So let's talk about that, because the question is the spot ETF going to be a sell the news event? And, it kind of, look, we're not going to know until we get there, right? So don't lose sleep over it. But number two is but B is, B is that there's a little bit of a difference between this being a spot ETF and the futures ETF. And the difference is the very fact that that ETF was futures. So a lot of people were saying that this is going to be sell the news. Why I feel this is different is CME futures that happened back then, it didn't remove supply, and because it's a futures thing, right? You're just trading a contracted price of something. You're not trading the thing. So it's a very, very different situation to this situation where the spot ETF removes supply. So it is in our best interest, number one, to not risk your Bitcoin. To not do silly things with it, to not sell it. I do see a lot of people saying that I sold all my Bitcoin for this altcoin. Like, buy all the altcoins you want. I just don't think you should risk your Bitcoin for it. I think Bitcoin should always be part of a crypto portfolio in some capacity, whatever capacity that is for you. But I don't think it's up for risking, for especially altcoins. Buy them separately. But anyway, the point being, if we're removing supply and these get approved, then Bitcoin has to be bought for these ETFs. So, and that's obviously how the supply gets removed. So I'm not so certain that this is going to be a sell the news event. Now, there may be some profit taking, once it comes out, because there are just simple traders like you and I, there are simple traders who are going to try and be ahead of the curve and take profits as soon as it comes out because they think that they're selling at the peak and they just want to take profit. They had a good run and great, well done. So there's definitely going to be that, and that may cause a short-term pullback. I don't think it's going to be the sell the news and that this move to the upside is over for now and that this was just a fake rally and that, we're still in a bear market or whatever. I don't think it's going to be a dramatic sell-off. Now, of course, if the chart shows me something different at the time, then my mind will change on that. But when we don't have a chart showing us this information, everybody is just speculating. And sometimes this can throw you off track. So I don't really tend to talk about news events too much because I don't want you guys to be thrown off track and to think that something is definitely going to happen, because nobody knows what's definitely going to happen, literally nobody. So it's sort of a little bit of a waste of time to just throw opinions around. Whereas, when you're looking at charts, then charts tell a story. So I would rather put all of my focus there. So the moral of the story is I can see why it wouldn't be a sell the news event. Maybe short-term profit taking. What happens if we actually get approved or not approved? Even if we didn't get approved, I don't think it's going to be the end massive sell-off, because everybody knows eventually it's coming. At some point in time, it's coming, and it's better to have Bitcoin before it comes than not. You know, if you were a buyer down in the teens or in the early 20s, you're not going to sell. You still double your money, more than double your money. Like, why would you sell? So as far as long-term investing, I don't see a reason to sell Bitcoin, regardless of what the ETF news is. And that's my personal opinion. I'm not telling you whether you should or you shouldn't, but that's my personal opinion. I'm not afraid of a massive sell-off, regardless of what the news is that comes out about the ETF. Now, if we did have a big sell-off, do I think Bitcoin's going to go back down to 15K? No. So no matter where it sold off to, I think would be an amazing opportunity for me to buy further into altcoins that I'm not fully positioned on yet. And that's how I will be treating this whole period of time. Any major sell-off for me, as long as they create macro time frame high lows, meaning anything above 15.6K on Bitcoin, is an opportunity to buy for the long term, because at some point in time we are going to hit a bull market, and it's just an opportunity to be in on that and then just sit and wait and be patient. And before we get into ETH, I just want to show you a new deal that we've got going on with OKX. If you join OKX using the link down below, you can get some sign-up bonuses. And in addition to that, with a 100 USDT deposit, you get free access to our private Discord. And a 500 USDT deposit gets you free access to our Zero to Crypto course. Now, that course is perfect for beginners. If you're a little bit unsure, if you're trying to learn to trade, you don't really know the basics, you don't really know how to move crypto around, this is going to be a perfect course for you, and it's completely free if you use the link to OKX in the description of this video. So with that in mind, let's move on to ETH, because ETH was the second one that I spoke about yesterday. And sometimes I think the market makers are watching, because what we talked about yesterday was exactly what happened. Now I'm talking about the ETH BTC chart, and I showed this channel on yesterday's show and was talking about this. And what I didn't like about this range right here was that we were creating lower lows, is what I said, and price kept under the 50 EMA. And I said, what I need to see next on the daily time frame, you can see this arrow was drawn yesterday. What I need to see next is a break of the 50 EMA with volume, and to see price make a run for the 200 EMA, which would essentially just be a run to the top of the channel. And what we can see is exactly that happening. So I've explained to you the colors of the candles. Now you can see it for yourself. This is a blue vector candle on the daily time frame. That's an increase in volume coming into ETH on the ETH BTC pair. And exactly what I said was, do not expect the ETH USDT pair to fly unless this turns around and breaks the 50 EMA. So we can see here that we broke the 50 EMA. Fabulous. Now let's go and have a look at ETH USDT. I already know that it pumped. We all know that it pumped, but we can see now what the result of that was. And so we were struggling here at the 50% vector. Now this vector comes from the daily time frame. If we zoom out, you can see it here. So price was struggling at the 50 EMA, and in order to get through it, it needs to bring in some volume. So that's what happened with this candle right here. I said to you guys, as long as we're above the 50 EMA, did I say 50% vector? I don't know what I said, but 50% vector, 50% EMA, easy to get them mixed up. But I said, as long as we're above the 50 EMA, I don't really have a reason to worry about ETH as far as it continuing to move to the upside. So what we really need now is to break right through it if we're going to have continuation to the upside. And to show you exactly what level that's going to be, that would be at 25.28 would get us right to the top of this daily vector right here. Now, if we can do that, if we can break through it and get above it, then we really don't have a lot in our way up until really around here, which would be 32.50. That's based on the daily time frame. So I'm not saying it would go straight up there. It would take time to get there, But there's no reason why we shouldn't reach there as long as we can break these 25-30 levels. In order for ETH to continue to the upside, just keep an eye on the Bitcoin pair, the ETH BTC pair, because as long as this maintains its momentum to the upside, so if it comes back after that and retraces back to the 200 EMA and it holds there, we would expect, continuation from there, and eventually we'll break that 800 EMA. And usually when it comes to ETH, especially if ETH Bitcoin turns around, all the other alts will go too. So it's the same strategy for everything, no matter what you trade. Just remember, anytime Bitcoin is consolidating on a higher time frame and just going sideways and not giving you a lot to trade, it's an amazing time to turn to alts and trade those instead. So no need to just sit back and watch one chart. Go and have a look at some altcoins. On my video, I'll link it up here somewhere. I did a video on how you can scan for coins to trade on CoinMarketCap. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.